Objections are a part of the game when it comes to selling, but how do you overcome objection and actually guide the prospect to saying yes? Well, on this episode, I want to give you some of the advice and tips that I have utilized and taught to some of my clients and students over the years, and hopefully they can help you too when you find yourself in a quagmire with an objection. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode today, I want to talk to you about objection. Now, many of us as sales professionals, we know objections are something that's a part of the game. You're going to get them. It's a matter of how do you go about handling them that's going to best help you to make it through this process. Now, when it comes to objections, two things typically happen at the beginning. One, salespeople will climb up and just start to spew out random things, giving out discounts and so forth. Or two, they'll get the wrong focusing on the wrong objection. Meaning that they'll spend time going after something or trying to solve an issue that's not a real issue. So I want to give you something that's worked for me, and hopefully this can work for you as well. If this is your first time listening to our podcast, please subscribe and we'll notify you every time we drop a new episode. Additionally, please tell someone else about this episode. You and I both know someone that can benefit from this, overcome objection, or need some guidance. So share it with them. Just take the link and drop it on LinkedIn or drop it in your WhatsApp or Slack channel with your team members. So let's dive in. The first thing that I always tell sales teams that I work with, individuals, this happened actually a couple weeks ago with the University, Brigham Young University, Idaho, where I just finished up my role helping students with their sales program there. It was pretty awesome, remarkable stuff that we've seen and happened during that time period. But here's what happened. Every time when we work with the students and they start talking about objection, the first thing they think about is that this is the end of the deal. And this is where you have to do your Hail Mary. You have to throw out whatever you can to get them to say yes, just to keep them on the phone or keep them going in this meeting. But the truth of the matter is that's not the case. What you need to do is just slow down. So what I typically tell them to do is take a breath, like take 3 breaths, or a deep breath, so to speak, not necessarily 3 breaths, but take a deep breath. And it's probably about 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Then you could go into it. It may seem like an eternity, but that 3 second is something that just helps you to be collective, calm, cool, collective, and just handle the situation. The last thing you want to do is panic and to throw out something silly like a discount. We don't do that, right? So take a deep breath. Okay. And then you move on from there. The next step that I tell them is to share appreciation or express appreciation. Sometimes it's kind of hard for a prospect to tell you, man, I just don't think this is going to work or whatnot. So I typically will tell them, show some appreciation. That might sound something like this. Hey, I totally understand. Or I get this often. Or, hey, I appreciate you telling me about this. This is one that usually comes up. And then after that, I tell them to do what I call a softener. This allows for you, or get permission. So this allows for you to be able to essentially get the buyer to start divulging information to you. We don't want to assume, and that's the last thing I want. One of the big important things I want to tell you before you jump into this. The last thing you want to do is assume. Never, ever, 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 ever assume. So now that I calm down, I'm calm, cool, collective. I expressed appreciation to them. Thank you for telling me this, for bringing this up. I then go into me getting them to divulge information by giving a softener. Is it okay if I ask you a question? They're more than likely at this point, because you got to understand, when you get in these objections, especially at late stage part of the deal, you've been working with this prospect for months or maybe weeks or multiple days. So the point is, like, they're not necessarily just pushing you off. There's probably some kind of legitimate reason, and you need to get to that. And at least if you've been a professional, that's the least they can do, is to at least express to you or give you the real reason. So I always ask that, is it okay if I ask you a question? This now allows for them to say, okay, yes, and start to peel back the onion, so to speak. So when I ask that, they usually say, yeah, what's up, Donald? And I say, usually, and there's 2 methods that I use to overcome the objection, or work through the objection, I should say. The first one is a menu idea. Usually when people are giving me an objection, I probably have known that reason before or experienced that reason before. And instead of us doing the dance and trying to peel back multiple layers, I'm going to be straightforward as much as possible in a respectful way to allow them to be able to pick one of those options if it's a legitimate option. If not, if it's not one of those options, they might tell me it's not those, Donald, but they'll tell me what the real reason is. The point is, when somebody gives you the initial objection, like, I need to think about it, it's not a right fit, we're too expensive, that is the surface level objection for the most part. And there's a real or deeper reason down that's causing them not to want to move forward. I want to get to that deeper reason. The menu, something I learned from my friends at Sandler, the menu allowed me to be able to identify top 3 reasons, as I mentioned, that could be the cause of that. So let's say, for instance, they tell me they're not interested. Usually, I'm not saying this is all the time, Donald, but usually when somebody tells me they're not interested, it's because, one, they have a vendor that they already preferred working with. Two, it's just not a fit and they don't know how to tell me no. Or three, the price is just way out of their price range. Now, as the sales rep, you need to identify what you feel is more than likely the logical reason over the span of your conversation with this person, working with them in multiple meetings. There's probably one of those at the real reason. You got to give a legitimate reason. You can't put fake options in there, but give them legitimate options that you feel could be the real reason based on circumstances and your experience with them. They might say one of two things, Donald. It's number two. We have, I just don't see how this could work for us. It seems like it's too clunky, it's too complicated, blah, blah, blah. And that's okay. But rather than telling me I need to think about it or whatnot, they're giving me the real reason, and I could tackle that real reason. I can find out what is about it. What is it that's clunky about this offering or software? What is it that doesn't quite feel like it will work for them? Maybe I didn't display or do a proper scenario explaining how this could work, or in the demonstration phase. So there's several things that could come because of that. At that point, do not jump on that yet. We still need to have us give them more information. So they might tell us, we might say, is there anything else? And they might say, Donald, no, that's really it. So that's one thing that will happen. Two, the other thing that might happen, they will tell you, Donald, you know what? It's none of those. But here's the reason. And now, great. They're willing to give me what that reason is. They might say, this is a lot to put on and to change right now, and I don't want for this not to work, and then for my job to be on the line. So now they gave me the real reason to that. It's a job security. They don't have confidence in what we're offering. So those are two things that will happen. One, they'll tell you pick one of the options if it's the legitimate reason. And if whatever they tell you, you go deeper, is there anything else? Or two, they might tell you, no, it's not one of those, but it's this. Now I will do the same exact thing. Find out why do they feel that this could be, may not work? And why do they feel that this may jeopardize your job and so forth? I can then solve that problem, but I want to find out, is there anything else? Because there's probably more things below the surface. Once I got all of that, I'm going to express appreciation again. I was like, you know what? I'm grateful that you brought this up to me right now. I mean, obviously we wouldn't want to implement something that you didn't feel confident with and it jeopardized you. So thank you for telling me that. We go through the solution, give them real legitimate option how we can fix it. So it might be that we want to give them a testimonial, or maybe set them up with one of our current vendors so they can see exactly how it works. Perhaps we need to go back and do a demo with more of their team members. Maybe we need to give them a way out, a trial period. They pay, but there's still a trial period that they can get refunded back if that doesn't hit a certain solution, hit a certain metric level that they're looking for, or whatnot, some kind of KPI. But the point is, we work through that and give a viable solution. And then we plan to implement that. Sometimes people will solve the problem or give a good solution, but then the execution of that doesn't work, and then the deal doesn't close. So set up a specific date and time and do it as soon as possible. So can we set up another meeting for tomorrow with the team members, or later today? Now, obviously, if it's going to be next week, then we do that. But we want to set a specific date and time so we can go ahead and add that implementation, and also redesign or redraw up the plan in that mutual action plan so they can see what the next steps are and how we're going to go about doing that, so we can have that continuity. You don't want this to stall. You want to jump on this and make it as soon as go through as soon as possible. So when people ask me, how do I overcome objection, or how do I work through objection, that's the way that I do it. It comes back down to having conversations, to being human, and to really express your feelings. Because once you're vulnerable, the buyer is going to be more likely to be vulnerable. And I'm grateful when people are to me and tell me those things. Obviously, if you're doing some of the things we talked about early on with building rapport, this will make it easier, because the buyer will feel that I should at least tell Donald because of the relationship that we've built so far. And I can tell that he's genuinely trying to help me solve this problem. So let me genuinely tell him what the real problem is. I'd love to hear your take on this. If you have some of another way that you overcome objection, let me know. The other method that you can think about is what we call the 5 whys. Essentially, it's asking why 5 times. And usually by the time you get down to the third to fifth why, you probably have discovered the real reason, especially if you've built enough relationship with this prospect. So let me give you an example. I need to think about it. Donald, I'll follow the same method. I appreciate you telling me about that you need to think about it. Obviously, we want to make sure you're making a right decision. Out of curiosity, is it okay if I ask you a question? Sure. When you say think about it, what do you mean by that? Well, then they tell me something. Okay. And when you say that, what exactly you're referring to? Is it because of this or because of that? But we play this game, so to speak, where we do the whys, the why question or why type question that helps the buyer, the really open-ended question that gives a buyer the opportunity to tell me more. At some point, usually by that third question or to that fifth question, that's where the buyer really will come to the point where they not necessarily give up, but they will probably get down to, we got down to the root reason. Donald, listen, I just don't know if this is going to work for our company, and I don't want my name to be on the chopping board if it doesn't. So that's my biggest concern. Mary, I appreciate you bringing that up, and I totally get that. It's the last thing I want. I know you're new to the company. Before we go on, is there anything else that you're not so sure about? No, that's it. So then now, again, Mary just expressed to me what the real reason is. After I asked the 3 to 5 questions, probing, going deeper, I got down to the real reason. And then we verified that and validated with Mary, and she expressed that's the real reason. We solved that, and then we go do a next step. That's how I work through objections. 2 methods. 1, the menu option. 2, what we call the 5 whys, or asking 5 questions. By the 3rd to 5th question is where you get to the real problem. Listen, I would love to hear from you again. I mentioned that. Go on LinkedIn. You can find me. You can see it pop up there below. Find me on LinkedIn, Donald C. Kelly. And I want you to tell me, how do you work through objections? Did one of these methods resonate more with you? I'd love to hear from you. As always, we're doing this because we want you to succeed. We want you to thrive. We want you to be successful. Most importantly, we want you to raise your level of thinking. I want you to go out and do big things. See you on the next one. Oh, and that's the end of our series. That was that fundamentals, the back to basics fundamental series. Hopefully you enjoyed it and that you got a lot from it. You can go back and watch these videos or listen to these episodes. But that was the last one there. So thank you for taking part in that. You're going to love the next episode that we have with my amazing guests. We bring folks that are bringing fire. Thanks so much. See you on the next one.